In the ancient world, ritual purity was a requirement for approaching the divine. Offerings had to be immaculate. A single flaw or a moment of carelessness in front of the altar could ruin hours of ceremony. The strictest rules applied to food. In Orthodox tradition, anything offered to a deity or a king had to be untouched by human mouths. A single bite rendered the food spiritually contaminated, an insult to the sacred. Lord Rama sits at the center of the Ramayana, an epic spanning generations. He is the ultimate embodiment of right conduct, commanding reverence through his adherence to these very traditions. Yet one of the most celebrated scenes in this text features this deity willingly eating half-bitten, physically contaminated fruit. This offering came from Shabari, a tribal woman living at the edges of the social order, far from the influence of the priesthood or the palace. This moment with a basket of berries functions as an entry point into a much larger question: how a simple act of devotion can challenge the established social order of an entire civilization. Shabari was born into a tribal community where animal sacrifice was a standard part of grand celebrations. Moved by compassion for the animals, she rejected her family's traditions and left her village. She wandered through the forest until she reached the hermitage of sage Matanga, seeking a life of peace as an outsider. At the time, social structure was often viewed as a pyramid. Scholars and complex rituals occupied the apex. Shabari, lacking formal education or caste status, existed at the bottom. She was barred from the traditional markers of holiness. She responded to this exclusion by turning manual labor into her own form of worship. She spent her days sweeping floors, hauling fresh water, and gathering firewood, actions that were invisible to the religious establishment. Her life suggests that devotion can exist entirely outside the bounds of orthodox education. In this story, the pyramid inverts, and her menial labor takes on the highest spiritual value. Before sage Matanga died, he left Shabari with a prophecy. He promised that Lord Rama would one day visit her specific hermitage. Shabari lived for that promise. As the years passed, she woke every morning before sunrise to clear stones and thorns from the forest path. Her hair turned white, and her body grew frail, but the routine remained. Younger generations and local residents mocked her. They saw an old woman waiting for a king who would never arrive, dismissing her persistence as a sign of old age and delusion. The public ridicule didn't stop her. Instead, those decades of isolation made her faith self-sustaining. She no longer required the approval of the community to believe in the prophecy. Rama and his brother Lakshmana were deep in their search for the kidnapped Sita when they arrived at the ashram. They paused their journey to visit this quiet, forgotten clearing. Seeing Rama at last, Shabari was overcome. She moved to welcome him, wanting to offer the sweet forest berries she had gathered that morning. Out of a desire to provide only the best fruit, she did something highly transgressive. She bit into every single berry to test its sweetness. She discarded the sour ones and kept the sweet ones, contaminating the entire batch by traditional standards. Lakshmana reacted with visible shock. He saw a massive breach of ritual purity, a deity being offered food that had already been tasted. Rama, however, focused on her intent rather than the physical fruit. He accepted the offering and ate the berries with genuine joy, ignoring the rules of contamination. This choice effectively broke the rules of ritual purity. Rama's acceptance proved that the internal state of the devotee holds more weight than the external state of the offering. Rama explained to Lakshmana that in his eyes, the sincere heart of a devotee carries more weight than wealth, caste, or the performance of complex rituals. Having fulfilled her purpose, Shabari entered a state of deep meditation and achieved spiritual liberation. She reached this state without the traditional gatekeepers of the religious elite. Generations later, her humble hut is remembered as a sacred site. While many grand temples from that era have been lost to time, her simple offering remains a central pillar of the epic. Modern society often relies on metrics like status, income, or education to determine a person's worth. The tools of judgment have changed, but the habit of looking at the surface remains. The story of Shabari suggests that in the search for truth, The purity of the heart is the final measure of value.